Every day, millions of people walk into a Trader Joe's, grab a box of cauliflower gnocchi or a jar of speculoos cookie butter, and never once stop to ask, why is this here? You probably think there's a massive corporate algorithm or a room full of data scientists in suits tracking your every purchase to decide what hits the shelves. You're wrong. In fact, most of what you think you know about how grocery stores work, the slotting fees, the massive marketing budgets, the endless shelf space, doesn't exist inside the walls of a Trader Joe's. Instead, there is a literal room, a legendary, private, and highly secretive tasting room at their headquarters in Monrovia, California. This is where the magic happens, and frankly, where your dinner plans are decided months in advance. I've spent the last 15 years embedded in the world of retail supply chains and product development. I've seen how the big guys do it. The endless spreadsheets and the pay-to-play schemes that keep small, delicious brands off the shelves of your local megamart. But Trader Joe's operates on a wavelength that defies every traditional rule of retail. If you've ever felt that weirdly personal heartbreak when your favorite seasonal snack suddenly vanishes, or wondered why you can't find a single name brand item in the entire store, you're finally going to understand the method behind the madness. Here's the secret most people miss. Trader Joe's isn't actually a grocery store. It's a curated boutique masquerading as a supermarket. They don't want to give you choices. They want to give you the choice. But getting a product into that tasting room is harder than getting a 5-star review from a food critic who's having a bad day. We're talking about a success rate that makes Ivy League admissions look like a participation trophy. Think about the sheer volume of food being pitched to them every single day. Now, realize that for every 10 items that make it onto the table for a tasting, only 1 or 2 might actually see the light of day. And even then, it's a brutal, unanimous vote. If the panel isn't all in, the product is out. No exceptions. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does this matter to me? It matters because every single item in your cart had to fight for its life to be there. This isn't just about food. It's about a high-stakes gatekeeping process that dictates the tastes of an entire country. When Trader Joe's decides that everything bagel seasoning is a thing, it becomes a global phenomenon. They don't follow trends. They manufacture them in a room that looks like a basic office kitchen. But it gets even crazier. The people sitting at that table aren't just executives. They are the tasting panel, a rotating group of crew members and captains who have to check their egos at the door. They aren't looking for good enough. They're looking for, I'd buy this with my own money right now. I know this sounds like a lot of hype for a grocery chain, but stick with me. Once you see the internal mechanics of how they vet their suppliers and the extreme lengths they go to keep their prices low, without ever holding a sale, you'll never look at a bag of mandarin orange chicken the same way again. Before we get into the actual tasting process, we have to talk about the golden rule of the tasting room. Because this one rule is the reason Trader Joe's is currently winning the grocery wars while everyone else is struggling to keep their lights on. The golden rule that makes everything else at Trader Joe's possible is simple. No one pays to be on these shelves. In every other major supermarket, big brands pay what are called slotting fees. It's basically a bribe. If a giant soda company wants their new flavor at eye level, they cut a check for millions. If a snack brand wants that prime real estate at the end of the aisle, they pay up. But at Trader Joe's, that money doesn't exist. They refuse it. Because the moment you take money to put a product on the shelf, you stop caring if the product is actually good. You just care if the check cleared. By eliminating slotting fees, marketing budgets, and the middleman distributors, Trader Joe's can do something wild. They pass all those savings directly to you. That's why you can get a bottle of high-quality olive oil for $6 while the same stuff is $12 down the street. But this value equation, which they define as high quality divided by low price, is put to the ultimate test every Monday morning in that tasting room. Imagine a group of about 10 to 12 people. These aren't just executives in suits. You've got store captains who were ringing up groceries 2 days ago, marketing folks, and category managers. They sit around a plain table with no fancy presentation. They're looking for a supermajority. If a new product, like those mini taiyaki waffles that took over TikTok in 2025, doesn't get at least a 70% yes vote, it's dead on arrival. A simple majority isn't enough. They want products that people are going to obsess over, not things that are just okay. And the vetting process is brutal. They aren't just tasting for flavor. They're checking for what's not in the food. Trader Joe's has a strict no-fly list for ingredients. No synthetic colors, no artificial flavors, no preservatives, and absolutely no GMOs. I've seen dozens of incredible products get rejected because the supplier couldn't find a way to make the color naturally, or because the price was 2 cents too high to meet the value threshold. But where do these products even come from? This is where it feels less like a grocery store and more like an international treasure hunt. Trader Joe's product developers don't just look at catalogs. They are literally flying to remote corners of the world. They might be in a small village in Thailand trying to source the perfect tom yum snack mix, or in a bakery in Italy debating the exact thickness of a frozen pizza crust. They find a small manufacturer who makes one thing incredibly well, and they strike a deal. We'll buy everything you can make, but you have to put our name on it, and you have to cut out the marketing costs. This is how they turn a niche, artisanal product from overseas into a $4.99 staple in suburban Ohio. It's a genius-level supply chain move that keeps their competitors, who are bogged down by massive logistics and brand negotiations, constantly playing catch-up. But there's a dark side to this curated model. Because they only carry about 4,000 items compared to a typical supermarket's 40,000. Space is the most valuable resource on Earth. For something new to come in, something old has to die. I know, it hurts. But that's the reality of the tasting room. They are constantly monitoring sales data. If your favorite seasonal pumpkin-spiced whatever isn't moving fast enough, the panel will replace it with the next big thing without a second thought. They are ruthless about performance because they have to be. The most heartbreaking thing about the Trader Joe's tasting room isn't the products that get rejected. It's the ones that get killed after they've already become hits. You've probably experienced it. You find the perfect snack. You tell all your friends. You go back the next week to stock up, and it's gone. The shelf tag is missing. The crew member gives you that sympathetic look. Here's the cold, hard truth. A product can be a bestseller and still get the axe. It usually comes down to supplier integrity. If a manufacturer suddenly decides to swap out real butter for a cheaper oil to save a few pennies, or if they can't scale up to meet the massive demand of 500-plus stores without compromising the recipe, the tasting room panel will pull the plug instantly. They would rather have an empty shelf than a mediocre product. They are obsessed with the taste-to-price ratio. If a supplier tries to hike the price because the product is trending, Trader Joe's will walk away from the deal faster than you can say speculoos. They refuse to let their customers get price gouged, even if it means losing a fan favorite. But it's not always a death sentence. Sometimes, a product goes into the rework. This is the secret redo process where the panel likes the idea of a product, but the execution isn't quite there. Maybe the frozen soup dumplings were too salty, or the packaging on the trail mix was impossible to open. They don't just say no. They send the product developers back to the kitchen with specific notes. Make the ginger sharper, or change the texture of the crust. They will iterate on a single item for 6 months, 12 months, however long it takes to get that unanimous yes from the panel. And that brings us to the biggest open secret in the entire industry, the white label mystery. Believe it or not, you've probably been eating name brand food from high-end gourmet labels this whole time. You just didn't know it. Because Trader Joe's doesn't spend money on advertising, those big-name manufacturers are willing to strip off their famous labels and put on the Trader Jose's or Trader Ming's sticker just to get access to that shelf space. It's a win-win. The manufacturer keeps their factory running at 100% capacity, and you get a $10 bag of pita chips for $3. But remember, that space is borrowed time. Every single square inch of a Trader Joe's store has to earn its keep. If a product's sales per square foot starts to dip, the tasting room is already prepping its replacement. It's a high-speed, high-stakes game of musical chairs where the only winner is your palate. The next time you're walking down that aisle, realize you aren't just looking at groceries. You're looking at the survivors of a brutal, elite selection process that started in a plain room in California with a dozen people and a stack of paper plates. They've done the hard work of saying no to thousands of mediocre items so that when you pick something up, you don't have to wonder if it's going to be good. You already know it is.